Hi guys, this is Alessio from the Developer Experience team. Today I'm super excited to go through two different new samples. The first one is the AI Playground and the second one is the Agentic Playground. The Agentic Playground built on top of the AI Playground. We will go through the AI Playground overview and then the Agentic Playground overview. We will see all of the architecture of the project in details and we'll visualize it through diagrams. Then we'll go through the Agentic Playground overview in Lens Studio, watching all of the components like chat, summary, and diagram, which are components that build upon all of this AI infrastructure that there is in the AI Playground. Then we will test these components before in Lens Studio. We will take a look how the script is organized across all of the project to understand all of the details and what to change if we eventually want to change. And then we'll wrap up with a customization overview that will tell you where to look at if you want to improve this project or build on top of it. Then we will test them in device. Let's take a look how this looks like. You can find this project in two ways. The first way is just through the homepage of Lens Studio. So when you click on spectacles, you will see all of our samples here ready for you. And the first one that you see in the line here is called AI Playground. So this is the sample that I'm working with today. You can also find the same samples if you go on our GitHub, and in the spectacle sample repository, you will see the AI Playground here. Once you click on it, you will see the same example, but is via GitHub. So it depends how you want to work, if you want to just download and clone all of our sample repository, or if you want to access directly on the project as a standalone project within Lens Studio. So it's up to you, but it's exactly the same. So the project is set up in a very simple way because the goal of this project is really understanding all of these models and how we work with this AI API as a standalone. Let's go through the project and try to understand how it works. You will see immediately the preview has three different windows. The first one is for generating images. The second one is for real-time AI assistant examples. And the third mode is for 3D model generation using the Snap 3D API. When you open the sample, the AI Playground sample, you will see immediately a warning that says, set your API token in the remote service gateway credential component to use the examples. This is a very important step, and I want to deep dive a little bit on this one for a second. If you go on our documentation and you go on the section spectacles and then remote service gateway, you will see that we have a quite extensive documentation that inform you how all of this works. The most important thing to remember is that the remote service gateway is a safe gateway that allows you to include OpenAI, ChatGPT from OpenAI, Gemini, Model and Live, and DeepSeek and Snap 3D safely in your application. We're very concerned about privacy, so it's very important for us that you interface safely with this API and you use things like internet model and camera safely. The remote service gateway is something that you will need to import in your project. In case of these samples, it's already imported because it's really showcasing how this works. And if we go back into Lens Studio and you click on Window here and you go on Remote Service Gateway Token, when you click on it, you will see a window that generates a token. This is the token that you need to copy, and then you need to include in this component named Remote Service Gateway Credential. Here, you see also a reminder that says, do not include your API token when sharing or uploading this project to version control. This means that if you are sharing this project via GitHub or collaborating with the team, please be careful about pushing things on the cloud with API keys. A note for you here, there might be some small changes in terms of UI and user experience, but the steps for you to create this token should still remain the same. This token also allows you to use AI APIs for free in this moment, so it's quite a great add-on to your lenses. Now that we set up our remote service gateway credential, we're finally ready to go into our scene and just test all of these models together. The first one on the left that you will find is called Generative Image Example. You will need to make sure that your microphone is on here at the top left of the preview. And when you see that you're receiving signals here, that you have a little bit of a visual feedback here, you can actually start to prompt the AI and create images, 3D model, or just conversate. So let's try something here. Please generate a cyberpunk city. You will see that there is a spinner that starts to give you sort of feedback that the image is processing, the API call already happened, and we are expecting an image back. We will see here that we have our beautiful image of a cyberpunk city, which is being generated in very few seconds. Then let's test the OpenAI and Gemini live real-time AI assistant example at the center of the scene. Let's start with OpenAI. When you test this model, you will need to use your headphones. The reason is that if you don't use your headphones, there will be an audio output from your computer or wherever you're testing, and that audio output would be considered an audio input for the assistant to answer you. Because differently from other previous services, live conversation means that you can constantly talking. And when you're constantly talking, there is no need to just like asynchronously send a request and just get a response. It's something that is more continuous. So for this reason, we need to use the headphones. Hello there.
Hi, how's it going? What can I do for you today?
Not much, I'm just doing a tutorial for Lens Studio.
That sounds interesting. Lens Studio is a powerful tool for creating augmented reality experiences. Are you working on a particular type of lens or effect?
So you see how it is responsive and talking to you constantly? Something that I want to mention between OpenAI and Gemini is that Gemini is considered more of a spatial model because it allows you to input not just your query, so you're not just text, but also the image of the context that you are in. So in this case, we consider it a lot more spatial because just imagine wearing your spectacles and just asking questions about the context around you, what you're looking at, where you are at, and so on and so on. So let's try the Gemini once again. Hey, what do you see in front of you?
I see a street scene at night with a light-up archway in the distance. What do you think of it?
I find it very nice, but I'd rather be indoor tonight, so would you mind telling me what you see now?
Now I see a cozy indoor setting with a record player, some wall art that looks like Morse code, and a coffee table with what appears to be a record on it. Are you planning a relaxing evening in?
So you notice through this demo that the Gemini model is really understanding where you are at. There is a very accurate description. So just imagine creating lenses with this powerful layer of AI on top of it, what kind of use case can unlock for you and the users you're building for. So let's go in the last example on the right, and let's try to generate a 3D model. So what we could generate, let's see what we have here that could be helpful. Let's maybe generate a lamp for my indoor. Please generate a lamp for my indoor room. Like the image generation is gonna take a while. The first step is showing you an image, and the second step is turning that image into a 3D model. You might already created the geometry. Yes, so we already have the geometry here, and we can take advantage of these assets in our scenes. And before to continue and pass through the Agentic Playground, which is also built on this one, let's take a look a little bit of the scene hierarchy. The scene hierarchy, you find these examples in this parent called examples here, this scene object. And you will see the real-time AI, so there is the AI assistant UI bridge that takes care of the model in the middle. Then we have the image generator, and then we have the Snap 3D example. All of these modules that you see into the scene hierarchy are built on top of more core utilities. For example, the real-time AI has an AI assistant UI bridge, which reference two other scripts that are the Gemini Live and OpenAI Real-Time. Then we have the image generator, which reference also the OpenAI model. Then we have the Snap 3D example generator that also reference something called Snap 3D Interactable Factory. And you will find all of the scripts in here in this folder. You will also understand how things are related to each other. As developers for developers, we really wanted to show you not just a standalone example of this technology, but also what you could build on top of it and what kind of use cases you can unlock as a developer for spectacles. So let's get into the Agentic Playground finally. Before to start and get into the details of the project and opening Lens Studio, we want to also mention something important. As we're very close to developers and we really know what are the current developer workflows, with AI, we wanted to deep dive in what would be the best developer workflow for you and deep dive a little bit on something called vibe coding or context management. This is something very helpful for you, no matter the way you code and no matter your skills, just to give you a little bit of a boost of your skills and make you feel more comfortable, especially looking for information about spectacles and all of the spectacles API. If you notice, I just opened my IDE here, I just opened Cursor, and I have a folder called Context. So the context here includes the AI Playground scripts. So these are the scripts that are from the previous project. The AI will understand very well what it needs to do when you have all of these scripts that are part of the previous project, because you're building on top of them, so you're just extending them basically. Then we have something called Agentic Playground Draw.io, which is a diagram. So let's open it and see how it looks like. When you open this diagram for the first time, you might be overwhelmed, but actually let me guide you through this. It's very simple, it's very easy. And this is really the way I started to draft this new project on top of the AI Playground. As I mentioned before, I was looking to create mainly 3 modules. There was the summary, a chat, and then a diagram. So I really started to think in those terms. Let's take a look at the summary, which is probably the simplest module. The summary starts with a ASQR controller. So let's go and check out what is the ASR module. If you go in here, you will see the ASR module from the Lens Studio documentation. So let's go in here and let's go again back in our documentation and click on the ASR module. The ASR module is the transcription module. It's the transcription that allows to capture audio and turn it into text. This is foundational for all of this example that we saw before and also the examples that we're going to build on top of it. This allows you to transcribe, enables integration of speech-to-text functionality within Lens Studio, offering support for 40+ languages. This is very effective and replaces another module that if you used it in the past is named VoiceML. So forget about VoiceML and use ASR. Whenever I mention the ASR module to Cursor, I always included this MD documentation because it's very easy for the AI to just make connection when actually there is very good context. Because when you start to have quite big projects, I feel like vibe coding is really not enough because you need to mix up your knowledge with whatever the power of the AI is. So taking a look at our diagram, we see that from the summary ASQR controller, we get to the summary storage. The voice turns into text and the text is stored in our persistent storage. If we go on the documentation, we will also find quite a lot of documentation about the persistent storage. It's compatible with Snapchat and spectacles. Remember that these tags at the top of the documentation always allows you to understand if there is compatibility with the platform you're using or not. And also remember that you can take advantage of this copy page button for you to just include this information if you're prompting to the AI. So in this case, what I did was a step ahead of that. I actually included this documentation as an MD file in my project because I know I will need it pretty often across all of the things that I want to do. Then I also included the remote service gateway, which we already went through. And then I also included the WebSocket because the WebSocket is also something that will be used across the technology for Gemini and OpenAI to have a continuous conversation. So we know all of our context here, and I won't need more than that. So let's keep also the context pretty focused and not just drop everything in it. I think this is pretty much a good choice. Another thing, if you are ever using Cursor that I want to mention, this is a plus, not mandatory, but certainly very helpful, is that if you go on Cursor settings, you can also take advantage of this very nice feature they have, which is indexing the docs. Indexing docs meaning that you can just paste a link of an API, and this API script will be processed and indexed by Cursor. So there will be all of that knowledge that will be indexed, and every time you ask for a question, the AI will also take a look at those documents. So this is very powerful, and if you want to add more documents, you can add docs here and just paste a link of something. For example, if we go back on our documentation, a great link, in my opinion, is from here. So the API reference. If you go on the API reference, then you go in Lens Scripting API. If you paste this link, full API list, so remember to click on the full API list. If you actually index this HTML link, it's gonna get all of these informations. So very important and very helpful for you if you're using Cursor. And always remember that whenever you're prompting, just not relying on the AI, re-watching all of your projects, just give like very focused questions and just drag and drop your context in every question you have. Let's go back to our Agentic Playground diagram. And we already went through these 2 points. Then we have a summary bridge, summary component, and AI summarizer. So this architecture is the main architecture that I'm gonna just repurpose through all of the components that I'm building in this project. And the summary bridge is the script on the scene hierarchy, the interface with something else, which is the actual AI services providing information to the summary bridge. The AI service for the summary, I name it AI Summarizer because I wanted to have something very intuitive to understand. So the AI Summarizer provides information to the summary bridge, which is in the scene, and is gonna fulfill our UI component, which is called summary component. So pretty easy, recapping for you, that text that is being stored that provides information to the AI to work with. The AI is gonna process that information, give it back to the summary bridge, and the bridge is gonna interface finally with the UI component. This keeps happening over and over in all of our project. So let's go ahead and take a look at how the chat works. The chat, similarly to the summary, works with ASR controller, which is the first component that you need to turn speech into text, because text is finally what will need to be processed. Then the chat ASKR controller is gonna create text, and then this text is gonna be stored, and it's gonna go through something called Agent Orchestrator. The Agent Orchestrator has the job of understanding what's the query that the user input and understanding how to route that query toward the right tool. In this case, the tools that we have available are a general conversation tool, a summary tool, a spatial tool, and a diagram tool that is split in 2, that is between diagram creator and diagram updater. Basically, the agent orchestrator gets the query from the user and then route it in the tool router, and the router understand where do we need to just direct it. If we go actually in the README of the project, we will see that there are different prompts for each of the tools. So let's take a look at those tools. We have general conversation tools. So you will see what the AI is doing here. Your response must be limited to exactly this maximum length. These are more parameters that I just insert because I want things and text to be rendered correctly on the UI that I prepared, which is just a skeleton. It's just a placeholder that needs to be fulfilled with actual information that makes sense from the AI. This is a hard limit that cannot be exceeded in any circumstance. Be conversational, friendly, and helpful. This is really just prompting engineer. You can change this and completely just change the meaning of all of these applications if you want to. Then we have another tool that is called summary tool. The summary tool gets as a context the summary that is being summarized before from the AI summarizer. So it answers, but also has an additional context that is being injected into the prompt, and that is the summary that is being done before in a previous phase. So here we still have a lot of guidelines in terms of how to be answering, but also we have this additionally document summary injection in the prompt, which allow us to understand more about the summary that we just collected previously. Then we have the spatial tool. The spatial tool is only routed toward Gemini because Gemini is actually between the 2 models, the only model that allows us to have a very strong video input. And here we are answering specific question actually regarding our surroundings. So imagine you are looking at a lecture and you're trying to collect information passively in the background. regarding something that you see on the whiteboard and the professor is drawing or is talking about or is doing some diagram that you want to remember. No need to take notes. This will be collected in the background for you, and you can route those information wherever you want. And then we have another tool, which is called Diagram Creator Tool, which is a mix of a lot of different things, because a diagram can be many, many things. Like my intention here in this project was to make a very three-dimensional diagram, which also take advantage not just of text, but also images and 3D models. So it's like a multimedia, let's say, diagram that will be able to route information toward text generation, image generation, and 3D models generation. And those are all of those models that we had before in our AI playground. So everything, again, is just built on the previous very simple sample that is the AI playground. And now we are taking all of those goodies and just build our framework on top of it. We have other prompt here that explain a little more, like, this is the AI summarizer prompt. We probably have the orchestrator prompt. We have the OpenAI assistant prompt as a default prompt. And we can also choose, if you go in the project, if we go back in here, if you go in the agent orchestrator, you can always choose your favorite provider for routing all of those tools. Now that we took a look at the tools, let's take a look actually what happens after the AI is being routed through all of these tools. After all of these tools, whatever is the results is going to be stored in a new storage component named chat storage. And then once again, we have the same architecture. We have storage, bridge, and component. So the storage store everything that is being created by the AI and routed by the agentic flow. Then we have a bridge that is going to be helping to format all of those data. And then we finally have the chat component, which will render those information for us to understand. The last module, which is still part of the agentic workflow, is something that is still part of the chat in a way, but I just separate it because I think it's actually creating a lot of complexity on its own. You will see that there is a diagram component, and this diagram component is composed as an input. We don't have this time ASR controller, because the ASR controller is the one that actually was in the chat. The chat and the diagram work together. So whenever you ask the chat, make a diagram, the diagram will be generated through the diagram tool. So very important to understand. And whenever these tools is operating, it's gonna go through a little bit of, let's say, pre-processing of all of your queries, because here you're generating text, images, and 3D model at the same time. So you kind of need to queue it, you need to manage it, because you have probably a lot of stuff going on. But beside that layer, which is managing that generation, we have three main nodes which are part of this diagram. So the AI is not inventing everything. We kind of give the blueprints needed for the AI to succeed. We have actually in this diagram three kinds of nodes. The first one is called text node, the second one is image node, and the third one is the model node. In the case of the text, there is no bridge because it's like a very easy transcription. Like you're just gonna take the text and inject directly into the node. The image and the model node instead have an image gen bridge and model gen bridge. And these bridges are actually powered by the initial provider that we have here. So this is actually the real creator of all of those AI information. We're just rerouting and we're just changing prompt on top of it. We're just wrapping around it. But actually, who are the guys that are building everything that we're taking a look at? Our OpenAI assistant, Gemini AI assistant, the image generation, and the model generation. So after we get to the nodes that we are displaying things, we are gonna have also a storage for the diagram in case we decide to save it. And then we have a diagram bridge, and finally the diagram component. The diagram storage and the diagram bridge are working together to format all of those information for being rendered on the diagram UI. So once again, similar architecture that we find before for the chat. We have ASR controller, turn our speech into text. Then the text does something. Then there is a part of the storage, and there is a bridge that is reformatting whatever is in the storage. And then there is the final displays on the UI that we are looking at in the application. So without further ado, let's take a look at the project and let's test it. So let's see how it works. When you will open the project, the first thing we're gonna take a look is how the scene hierarchy is organized. We try to keep things very clean here for you to understand what to do. We have a part at the bottom that includes all of the managers. So there is the OpenAI, Gemini AI Assistant, image generation, model generation, the agent orchestrator, the AI summarizer. Then we have a storage manager that references the chat storage, the summary storage, and the diagram storage. And then we have a specific manager for the generation queue because we are queuing all of those 3D and 2D generation all together when creating the diagram. It was an intention for us to actually expose this and put it in the scene because we wanted to understand like all of these concepts in blocks for you to just take, modify, and maybe just create something again on top of it and make this still better. Then we have actually 4 components, which is the summary, the chat, the diagram, and the tool panel, which is the one in the bottom that acts just as a log of what tool is being showcased. Now let's go ahead and let's try the summary in the inspector. The cool part of this project is that you can also test these components without the need actually of using them. If we go on the summary section and you click on manipulate parent, this is just this part at the bottom that allows you to move things around and nothing special about it. It's just basically a manipulation bar. And then we have something here that is summary component, storage, and voice input. You will see that things look quite the same in every section of the project. So once you understand one time what is going on, the pattern is very repetitive for you to pick up and also understand what to modify. In the summary component, you will see 2 scripts. One is summary component, which is the UI, what you actually see in the inspector. In fact, if you just click on test mode, you will see the UI immediately appearing in your scene with dummy files. So this is a mockup summary text, which is just here for you to understand how this component works. This component works in a way that kind of gets all of what you've been summarizing and display it through these cards that are swappable, and you can just go through them and understand the main topics of whatever you were listening to. So let's remove the test mode and let's really try this within the inspector. So once again, to test things in the inspector, very important, make sure that you click on this microphone, make sure that you set your remote service gateway. So let's take a look if we actually set it up correctly. Let's go in requirements, let's go in our remote service gateway, and we actually have our ID already set. So we should be good to go. If this is not here, meaning that you will need to go again on our window, remote service gateway token, and then regenerate a token. So once you inserted the token and you're sure you're good to go, we can actually go on the summary component. We can enable some debug logging for the bridge because this is the one that actually will tell us what's going on. And we can also take a look at the summary voice input and enable some debug logging here because this is the voice input that is going to allow us to get all of those text which is being transcribed by our voice input and is going to be stored to create the summary. In fact, here we see a reference in the ASR controller to the summary storage. So just understand all of the relationship of all of these components, and I hope this makes sense. Remember in the diagram that we just saw all together. Another thing to remember is that you need to set up your microphone before to do this. Otherwise, the audio won't be picked up. In this case, it's just connected to my default MacBook Pro microphone. And then let's try to play just a YouTube video and see if actually things are picked up. And if everything works, this card should appear after I think around 500, 600 characters has been processed. We should see our card being rendered with a new content of text which is related to the video that we're looking at as a summary. Let's go on YouTube. And let's play Introduction to Spectacles Development using Lens Studio.
First, open Lens Studio. You'll be entering the Lens Studio homepage. Lens Studio can be built for many different platforms. For this video, we'll focus on building for spectacles. So let's begin the starter project for spectacles.
Okay, so we just went through how many words? I think around 1,000 words, something like that. And the summary is being processed and it's being showcased in our card component here. You notice that before we started, and there was like only 3 cards, and then the more time you spend like listening to this dialogue, to this YouTube video, more cards are displayed. So now we got to a full amount of like around 9 cards, actually 10, 11, 12. 13. Oh, we have a lot actually. Okay, we have actually 13 cards. 14 goes to 0. So we have actually 14 little cards that help us summarize what we listen to. Another thing that we want to make sure is that we have actually everything stored. Because the storage is controlled, centralized here, if we actually have the reset storage on awake, meaning that if we click this here, it's gonna just erase everything. We also have a handy button here if we are on device to reset the storage. In this case, we didn't do it, so meaning that if we refresh now, the summary should be still there. In fact, we see that the summary persists, and that's the persistent storage for you. So here we see that the things are persisting, and you will see it appearing again in your session. Okay, now the step 1 is being tested. Now let's go and take a look at the chat component. Chat component is very similar to the summary. We see that there is an object called chat component and has attached a chat component and a chat bridge. The component, once again, is what we see in the editor, and the bridge is what allows us to get information from the storage or from the query and format them and see them on the inspector in our UI component. And this equally will work on device as well. And we will have a full test also on device for this. The chat component is built in a way that allows you to visualize chat like you could use something like ChatGPT, but in space. So allows you to have a little bit more of this kind of spatial quality. You can also move it and put it in vertical surfaces or in horizontal surfaces if you would like to use this component on the table instead of just looking in front of you. So all of these components that you see are actually, you can manipulate them and put them in the most comfortable position for you when you're using the glasses. Remember that before to do this, you will always need to use your headphones. If you don't use your headphones, the AI will interpret the output audio as an input audio for the next query, because it's something that is continuous and it's built on top of a WebSocket, so it's not like an asynchronous call, but it's a continuous call. So just very important that when you're testing, you use the headphones. So let's go ahead and try all of it. Hey there.
Hi there. I'm here to help you learn. What subjects are you interested in today? Perhaps math, science, or history?
We see that it's being processed, the default conversation tool, because I just said something like, hey there. So there is nothing really else to go through. Now let's try to invoke the summary tool. Hey, I would like to know a little more about the summary that we have here. I just went to a lecture and I don't remember all of the concepts.
This summary covers Project Assets Preview Panel, Use Interactive Preview Navigation Mouse Interactor Function Environment, resetting any specific topic you want to review.
Actually, I would like you to give me the 3 major points of the lens behavior and device interaction in projects.
Okay, here are 3 major points about lens behavior and device interaction in projects. 1. Understand user intent. 2. Optimize performance. 3. Design intuitive interfaces. Do you want to dive deeper into any of these?
So we see that actually we get back the information from the summary, things make sense, and all of the answers are actually related to the summary because we invoked the summary tool previously. So we invoked the default conversation tool. We invoked the summary tool. Now let's try to invoke the spatial tool, which is the one that allows us to describe our surrounding. Actually, I would like you to describe what you see in front of you.
I see a street at night with tall buildings and palm trees. There's a decorative archway with lights in the middle of the street. The street is paved and there are street lights on either side.
Just also take into consideration that you can also go back and see all of your query in this way. So this is kind of a nice UI component that allows you to really organize your text as it is a chat. Okay, great. So the summary tool worked, the conversation tool worked, and the spatial tool worked. Now we're only missing the final one, which is basically creating that diagram, which makes sense with the summary that we have. Let's go ahead and test it. Hey, I would like to understand a little better about the summary. Would you mind creating a diagram for me that explains me the major points of the summary? All right, now we see that there's been used the diagram tool. We also see that the diagram is being generated in our scene. Another thing that I want to mention is that the internet connection is a very important aspect of this project. We are interfacing with external APIs. So if you have a low internet bar, or if you have like a weak internet connection, things might not work as expected. So make sure that your signal of internet is the strongest possible and it's constant. Okay, now that we tested everything in the editor, we made sure it worked. Before to test on device, I also want to give you an overview of all of the scripting component we have. I think it's very important to understand from the initial diagram of all of the architecture of the project, how that manifests inside of Lens Studio. And after that, we will wrap up with a customization section, meaning that you can take everything we have here and just make it yours and just go through a sort of a flow of customization, mostly starting from all of the prompts that are defining the tools, the orchestrator, and the main summarizer, and all of the AI tools we have. So if you go into the project and you open at the root, and once again, I remember you, it's very important that when you work on some projects, you have a context folder that allows you to reference to the AI everything you need when you're asking for questions. This really helps not just to create a project from scratch, but also to understand the project when especially it's a large code base and you might not too familiar with it. So let's go into the Agentic Playground and let's go into the script folder and let's see how this is subdivided into. There is the agents folder, which has all of the script related to the agent flow. There is the ASR folder that gets the ASR controller for the chat and for the summary. These are the point of entry for your voice that turns into text. Then there are components, and the components are just those UI components that we visualized previously, and for each component respectively we have a bridge, which is the bridge that interface the storage and the AI content that impact the UI. Then we have a core folder, which includes all of the major points of AI generation. So all of the core script that are the one that you can find on our documentation are part of the scripts here. So we have the AI summarizer that of course cares about the summary. We have the Gemini, we have the OpenAI assistant, we have the model generation, the image generation. So all of these are part basically of that remote service gateway section that we saw previously in the documentation. Then we have the nodes that are the nodes of the diagram. Then we have the storage management, which go from chat storage, diagram storage, summary storage, and everything is referenced into one component that is called storage manager. Then we have some testing here if you want additional testing for understanding how things are. And then we have the tools. The tools are those, let's say, extension of the initial core component that will narrow down the homework of those agents and basically create and react based on the chat query of the user and just go through all of the things that we did before. For example, we saw the diagram creator and updater tool that allows us to create a diagram. And then we have the general conversation tool, the spatial tool, the summary tool, and finally the router, which is the component that allows us to understand which tools we are using. So let's go, for example, in the router here, and let's take a look at all of these index tool. There is a description, you see the format here. There is a description of the tool, there is a capability of the tool, and there is when using the tool. So we see all of these kind of very much like repetitive structure, but we just change what there is within the content of the tools. Let's say that we want to add a new tool. What we would do, we just duplicate another index tool and we just call it differently. And then we build on top of it. You see how scalable is this way to work and allows you actually to create more tools and improve and having pretty much not just an agent that you can talk to, but an agent can actually help you to generate digital content, understand the context around you, listen to things and summarize them for you, and so on and so on. Then we have a final utils. This is just basically utilities that support every specific function. For example, in this case, we have a line 3D, which helps to creating the lines into the diagram. I would say the most important things to know in this project are the agents folder, and then we have the core folder. Take a look at the AI summarizer, for example. We will have here another prompt that allows us to understand what are the requirements and what is this doing. So you see how things are formatting here for our cards and so on and so on. And then this is the structure of our cards. So this really allows you to understand how changing this system prompt strategy might really bring you to create a completely new project. In fact, here it's all about understanding what to do, dictating the tool to do something in particular, and then parsing that answer for you to fulfill UI components for you to see within the application. So this is like a common structure that repeats over and over. In fact, if you go on the README, and now let's switch a little bit, instead of talking about the scripting structure of the project, let's talk about AI prompting, because really, this is the main thing actually that this project is doing. It's just putting together things, but mainly are this prompt that allows you to really change the flavor of the project. So if you go on the README, you will see all the system prompt and their location for you to change them and understand what to do. We have the tool router, which is the tool that routes to the specific tool. Then we have the OpenAI assistant. And once again, we have this kind of main prompt. We have the AI summarizer. Then we have this section that says adding new tool. So let's say that we want to add new tool. What would we do? We create a new tool class, like we showed before. We create my new tool, tool purpose, and so on. So we create a new tool that imitates those tools that you find into this folder. And then we register it with the tool router. So we will need to add it to the tool router. And then we update the AI routing prompt to include the new tool in the routing decision. So now we know how everything works in this project. We deep dived into a lot of things. We know exactly what to change if we want to change, or what to use if we want to just use the project and understand how it works. Now let's try the same thing on the device, and let's really tackle a real life use case and see how it would be if everything we show now actually runs on glasses.
When you first open Lens Studio, you'll be entering the Lens Studio homepage. Lens Studio can be built for many different platforms. For this video, we'll focus on building for spectacles. So let's begin the starter project for spectacles. Each panels might be configured differently based on the project. So in case you do not see
Hey.
Hi there. I'm here to help you learn. What would you like to explore today? Math, science, history, or something else?
What do you see in front of you?
I see a laptop, a black case, and a phone on a white table. There's a window showing trees and a building outside. A clock on the wall reads about 4:25, and there's a plant next to it.
Let's go back to the summary. What is this summary about, and what are the major 3 points of it?
Summary is about Spectacle Starter Project. Main points: interactive previews, customizable environments, user preferences.
Would you please provide me a diagram to show me in depth all of these topics?
Okay, we went through a lot in this tutorial, but let's recap all of the section we went through. We saw the AI playground first, then we saw the architecture for creating the Agentic Playground. We saw the Agentic Playground in action in the inspector. We tested all of the components, so chat, summary, and diagram tools. And we went through the scripting overview. And then we went through an overview that allows us to understand how to customize all of those components for our purposes. The power here is really in the architecture of the project. is a scalable architecture that allows us to run natively on spectacles all of these agentic flow that interface what the AI does and spatial tools. I hope this was helpful for you. I highly encourage you to pick one idea of your choice and really just ask questions to the AI and understand fully the project. This will help you to take ownership and bring this project to the next level to make the lenses that you're dreaming of. We can't wait to see what you build with this.